Hi everybody, it's Dr. Barbie here. It's been a while that I've posted. I have been a little bit busy changing jobs and creating a human. So I have been doing a lot of things and haven't really had time to post much, but I wanted to start this series of 10 videos where I talk about the 10 principles of intuitive eating. Most people think intuitive eating is just about eating what you want, when you want, whenever you want, and stopping whenever you feel full. That is part of the premise, but there's actually 10 principles that guide how to eat intuitively and how to become an intuitive eater. The first principle that we're going to talk about in this video is reject the diet mentality. So, if you think about this, if you are someone who has been either chronically dieting, having disordered eating, or eating disorder, you probably have tried more than one diet in your lifetime. And as you probably noticed, if you tried more than one diet in your lifetime, it means that that first diet did not go as planned. And usually what we see is that 95% of diets fail. What that means is that it's not your willpower that was the issue. It wasn't you who was the failure. Diets are made to fail. And the reason why is because when we cause any sort of restriction, whether that's physical or mental, even sometimes we can argue emotional restriction in terms of food. If you have a certain connection to a food, or if it reminds you of something, when we have any sort of restriction, eventually our brains and bodies go into override. In terms of mental restriction, if you haven't eaten your favorite food, let's say brownies, for a certain number of years, you will probably keep thinking about brownies all the time. And those years that you haven't had the brownies, you probably ended up binging on those brownies here and there between your diets. And that's because you keep thinking about how you're craving the brownie because you're not allowed to have it. It's kind of like if I told you to not think about a yellow truck. The first thing that goes into your mind is a yellow truck. But if you're allowed to think about a yellow truck, you think about it for a second and then it goes away. Similarly happens when you get a mosquito bite or something like that. I usually say to my patients, think about that you'll scratch it later. Not that you can't scratch it, because if you think that you can't scratch it, it almost itches more. Just like if you are on a diet or some sort of restriction mentality, you kind of want the things you can't have. Now, in terms of a physical restriction, if you're on a diet, what happens is physiologically, your body eventually wants you to have certain foods or nutrients that you're missing. In terms of when we go on restrictive diets, whether that is specific macronutrients or specific number of calories, what tends to happen is because our bodies all have genetically predetermined body set point weight, which usually varies between 10 to 20 pounds up or down. So that means that your weight is also not supposed to be fixated on one number only. What happens is if we restrict our bodies physiologically about certain nutrition, nutrients, or even numbers in terms of energy, because that's what calories are, it just gives us energy. Eventually your body overrides that mental need or want to restrict. The restrictive rules that you're imposing on your body will eventually override them, and then you will end up overeating at some point or another. And I'm sure if you have gone in more than one diet, which is likely the case, that 95% of diets fail, and you went at some point into overdrive and you had your cheat day or your cheat meal and or even an unplanned day where you just ate more than what your diet allotted. And that point is when your body overrides all the restrictions you have placed. Now, the first way of getting rid of that history of disordered eating is to reject the diet mentality. Just like the first step to mending a mistake is to recognize that there was a mistake in the first place. Before you say you're sorry, before you do any action to correct the mistake, the first thing that you do is recognize that there was a mistake in the first place. So, very similarly, in terms of how that works, the first step to getting over disordered eating or eating disorder is actually rejecting the diet mentality. So that is our first intuitive eating principle. Reject the diet mentality. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope you have a great day.